across the oceans till we found the American dream.
Thank you for tuning in. My name is Ingrid Lemmy, and this is my show, American Dream. A show about people, their hopes, their dreams, their family heritage, and their unbelievable realities. My guest today is Dennis Suskind. Dennis, thanks for being on my show today.
My pleasure.
Here at beautiful Guernsey Inn overlooking the ocean.
It's fantastic.
It's a pleasure meeting you, sir. Now, first of all, I had to, for your information, learn that it is not Suskind, it is Suskind.
Suskind.
And you are a kind man.
Thank you.
You are.
You know, and you know what it means in German.
Yes, I do. Dennis, we're starting on American Dream, where it always starts. None of us would be here if it wouldn't be for the ones before us. Give us something about your family heritage, if you would.
Well, let me tell you about my grandfather.
Okay, great.
My grandfather lived on the Russian-Polish border, spoke Russian, spoke Polish.
Do you remember what city or town that was?
Yeah, he lived in a town called Yavavna.
Okay.
And he walked across Europe at the age of 16 to come to America because he didn't want to go into the Russian army. Mm-hmm. And he wound up on the Lower East Side, and he wound up in a family that came from the same town where there was a mother and a daughter, also around 16, whose father had died after they got here. And this mother took in laundry and did housekeeping work, and she had a one-bedroom apartment, and she rented out spaces on her living room floor to immigrants who had no money because she needed money.
Unbelievable.
And my grandfather slept on that floor for 6 years. And then he married my grandmother, who was the daughter. And my grandfather lived till 93 years old. Until the day he died, he always would smile and say, "I married your grandmother to get off the floor." So I consider that my heritage.
That is an incredible, incredible story. Thank you for sharing that. That is neat. Now, we should explain that Dennis Suskind is the, hold on, I have to read this because it's pretty, you are the, help me out, the vice chairman.
Of the board.
Vice chairman of the board of Bridgehampton National Bank. That's pretty neat.
It's just pretty neat. You know, having a home in Bridgehampton and living here now permanently, there are two things you can aspire if you really want to be a local and not having been here for 7 generations. One is to be on the board of the Bridgehampton National Bank, and the other is to possibly own the Candy Kitchen. And George and Gus, George till he passed away, and George and Gus now, they won't sell it to me, so I have to live with only being on the board of the Bridgehampton National Bank.
So that means all the money that Bridgehampton National Bank earns is yours? Is that what it is?
Not exactly. It's, hopefully if you're a stockholder, it's yours.
Yeah, I get you. Well, you are probably a stockholder.
I am a stockholder and have been for a long time.
Well, that helps, of course. Dennis, we're looking at the Hamptons Classic Horse Show. Now, that is big in regards to horses.
It is. I was a rider. We started to ride. I have 4 children, and we started to ride with our son when we were looking for something we could do together. He proved to be allergic to horses, so he stopped, and my wife and I continued, and then eventually I was competing at the Hampton Classic, and I came into the office and complained about something nicely, and the end up was I went on the board. And then a few years later I was head of the board, and I've been probably president of the board now for 20 years, a long time.
So that's helpful as well.
It's helpful as well. It's you know, I consider it a fun thing to do. It's the horse show is as big as it can get, and we just try to make it better every year. We're a horse show that gives its profits away. We're not a fundraiser per se. We're a non-profit, but basically what we're trying to do is run the best horse show in America.
Where's it going?
Well, we give our profits that we don't keep for improvements to the Southampton Hospital.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we didn't know that. So for everybody out there in the tri-state area of New York who is watching now, if that isn't a reason to come and visit the Classics.
Well, it's not a reason to come, it's just what we do. I mean, there's a lot of really nice aspects to the Hampton Classic. you know, from, you know, you can come, you don't have to be into horses, you can watch for an hour, you can have an ice cream cone and leave. You can come.
Or do some shopping. There is a lot of shopping.
You can do some shopping. We have a lot of nice things that happen.
And wear a crazy hat.
You can, if you're a lady or a man, you can wear a crazy hat if you like. I think you
love
look like
doing
somebody
that.
who might wear a crazy
Yes.
hat.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people come to look at people because there are a lot of celebrities who ride and whose kids ride, and a lot of people come because they like to watch the competition, and a lot of people come just to do something. It's you know, it's really a happening. But we have a lot of nice things. We have a day where we have competition for adults and children with disabilities, and that is one of the most inspiring things I think I've seen in a lot of years. So we do a lot of nice things. We're very proactive on horses and how they should be treated. And we've been in the front running of how horses are. We have an ambulance there for the horses, in addition to an ambulance for the riders or the spectators. And so we really take it very seriously.
So this is the real thing.
We really take it very, very seriously.
Very serious.
Very
yes.
serious.
Dennis Suskind, you weren't always the successful man you are today. At one point, you were this little guy who had to go to school and then slowly but surely discover his life, grow into his life. Tell us about those childhood years, school, etc.
Well, I didn't have much school, but I grew up on Staten Island.
We love to hear that. Not that we suggest it, but we love to hear these stories.
I grew up on Staten Island, which was a great community. My grandfather that I mentioned was in the fruit and vegetable business. Yeah. And he had a fruit and vegetable stand, and he lived upstairs. My parents lived upstairs. My mother lived upstairs. And he had pigeons, carrier pigeons. I mean, this is...
Really? And
then my mother and my father got married, and then my sister was born, and I was born. I was born in 1942, so you can figure out how old I am from that.
How old are you?
At 70. I'll be 70 in December. I'm 69. Anyway, I don't know how to describe it. You know, it was a lower middle class family. You know, both my parents worked. We lived in attached houses, and they opened up the door in the morning, and I went out to school to play, and they came back at 6 o'clock, at 6:30, and I came home, and had a great life growing up. I didn't realize I was poor.
You know what? It really didn't matter, right?
I didn't know.
Matter.
But I do remember, you know, it's funny how you remember little things. I remember wanting a baseball glove, a specific baseball glove that was $16.
Yes.
And which was a lot of money in 1950.
And you couldn't have it.
But I couldn't have it. And then eventually I got it. But it's funny, that just stayed with me all these years.
Yeah. You know, since you're mentioning that, my mother is still sorry that when we were children that she couldn't give us everything, and she feels sorry about that. We don't. We were fine because we were happy.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
You know?
And you know, people were described by their wealth in terms of where they lived on Staten Island. So if you were poor, you lived in the projects. If you were slightly poor, you lived in attached houses like I lived in. If you were a little more wealthy, you lived in a wooden house. If you were a little more wealthy, you lived in a wooden house with a brick front. And if we were really wealthy, you lived in a total brick house.
Really?
Yes, that's how we describe wealth.
Do you live today in a total brick house?
I live in New York, I live in a total brick building. And here I live in a poor wooden house.
Yes?
Yes, we don't, in Southampton, they don't have.
It's wood only.
Wood only,
so
basically,
yeah. But I guess you live maybe a little closer to the ocean then.
Than I used to, yes.
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 Dennis, school wasn't really your cup
School
of tea.
wasn't my thing. It's interesting, I went to Curtis High School on Staten Island, just a public high school after PS 29. I graduated high school and went to work. College wasn't a consideration.
So, while Dennis is thinking about what he did right after school, going to work, we're going to take a break. Yes, I understand. We have a very interesting guest on this show, Dennis Suskind. We will be back on the American Dream Show at beautiful Gurney's overlooking this amazing ocean. Dennis Suskind. Dennis Suskind, you are, well, I am almost ready to say a jack of all trades. It's amazing. You are on so many boards that I really have to ask you to help me out. This is like, please, give us a rundown. What else do you do?
What I'm on the boards I'm on now or previously?
Well, how about you just tell me about all of them?
Well, currently, I'm president of a ski lodge called the Stein Eriksen Lodge in Deer Valley, Utah, which is probably the top-ranked hotel of a ski lodge in the world. That's a slight exaggeration, but we are a 5-star, 5-diamond hotel and spa, one of 34 in the world. So I'm president of that board. I'm president of the Hampton Classic that you mentioned. I'm on the board of Marymount School in New York, which is a K-12 school. My daughters went there. They've graduated, but they were so good to my daughters, I stayed on the board. I'm on the board of the Bridgehampton National Bank. I'm vice chairman. I'm president of the Hampton Classic. I'm on the board of the Atlanta Golf Club. And
tell us about that. Must be fun.
No, it's not fun. It's just, some of the, I'm on the board of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, which is a serious board.
That is very serious.
That's very serious.
Please give us a little insight.
Well, I grew up in my history is I grew up in the commodity business. You don't know about that yet.
No.
And the New York Mercantile Exchange was thinking of going public some years ago, and they asked me to come back on the board as a public member.
Okay.
Because I had been vice chairman of the exchange many years earlier, and I came back, and the company went public, and then it was sold to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and merged into it, and they then asked me to go onto the board of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. That's about 6 years now. And so that's been a very interesting board to be on.
Tell me a little bit about the background. You obviously...
My background?
Yes.
Well, after high school, I actually started working for a company called Miles Shoes. You wouldn't know them. They were Miles Shoes was a very low price shoes. There was Tom McCann, and the only shoe that was cheaper was Miles. And I worked in their office. I had aspirations to become an accountant. And their office, by the way, was on 58th Street and 10th Avenue, which is now John Jay College of Criminology.
My husband got a master's degree there.
There you go, if it wasn't for me. What's interesting is, as an aside, is that it was a very large office, and I reported to a woman. It was a big open space. It was pre-computers, obviously, in 1960. Even though men were allowed to smoke in the office, no one knew about smoking and cancer, and I did smoke, and women were not allowed to, because it wasn't ladylike. So therefore, I could smoke, and my boss sat across from me.
How many years ago was that?
1960.
Oh, okay.
So
those were the days.
And so when I told my daughters about this, they would go, "You should have stood up for the women." And I said, it seemed logical in 1960, and it was because it wasn't ladylike. So it was just sort of a different time in the world.
Understand.
So I started working for Miles Shoes, and I took a job in 1961 downtown for a company called Rayner and Stonington, which is a commodity trading firm, to work in their accounting office, and I never left that job till I retired. Through a very series of things, I worked in the accounting department. That company was then merged into a company called J. Aaron and Company and in 1968. And in the first company, by the way, I worked in the accounting department, and I was also the messenger.
Really?
So, but I had worked in my father's store. My father had a small men's shop on Staten Island, and he didn't teach me about lacking off. He had to work 100%. Otherwise, he'd smack me in the back of my head slightly, sometimes harder than slightly.
Yeah.
And so I didn't understand. And then one day there was a visitor from London that owned part of the company downtown, and he wanted somebody to walk him around. And he said, "I got this young kid. He finishes his work at 10:30, and everybody else takes till 5 o'clock." And that was me, because I didn't understand the principle of taking a 2-hour job and expanding it into 8 hours.
Right.
And I'd always go, "What do you have for me now?" And that was like sort of one of the key moments in my life. I think that everybody has key moments in their life, because there are a lot of people out there who are much smarter than me. And I tell my daughter, who's in the job market, I said, whatever your job is, you got to do it 100%. So
go beyond.
So if someone says, go get them a cup of coffee,
you
do it enthusiastically, and you do it to give them the best cup of coffee you can. And my father instilled, my mother and my father, my mother was a businesswoman also. She always worked, instilled that you have to work hard all the time. And so eventually, that company was sold to J. Aaron and Company, and I became a very modest partner in J. Aaron and Company. By that time, I had moved into the precious metals business, trading. And then that company was sold to Goldman Sachs in 1981, and I became a partner at Goldman Sachs on the acquisition. And then I retired from.
So that means you're wealthy.
That means that I can afford to come here on a Thursday morning and speak to you without worrying about my lunch meal.
That was a great answer. Give us a little more.
Well, I think, if you want to talk about things in your life, I'll just give you one anecdote of my life. I had a mentor, and how he became my mentor was that I worked in this company, and I took over doing something for the company, a business that I was told was probably never going to really succeed. And I was sort of making it succeed by myself. And one day, my boss called me into my office, and I sat way on the other side of the office by myself because I did a special thing. And he said, I happened to be driving around the Horn of Manhattan last night at 10:30, and I saw you walking. Now, in 1966, 1965, that was dead at night. It wasn't like today. It was pre-World Trade Center, et cetera. And what were you doing here so late? And I said, well, I worked until about 9:30, and then I went over to Harry's to have dinner, and I was just going home. And he said, you do that often? I said, I do it Monday through Thursday, and then Friday night I go out and try to meet women, which I was not very successful at, by the way. And he said, I looked on the overtime sheets. You never put in for overtime.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm retyping my invoices and retyping my bills of lading and retyping contracts for all the trades that I did. It was pre-computers also, and everything was with a typewriter and a carbon paper. And I said, I'm learning, and I didn't think it was fair or appropriate to put in for overtime. So he said, okay. And the next day when I came in, my desk was next to his desk. And he became my very good friend and my mentor the rest of my life.
Wow.
And today we're very close. He became like my brother.
That's an American dream story.
Yeah, but that was the point of the story. I mean, it is. And I say it, I'm inspired by it, and I say it because it's just doing the right thing and not thinking short term. I wasn't thinking long term. I was 12 years old. I was just doing the right thing. I didn't understand what I was doing, but I just knew I had to work hard, and I didn't think about me. I thought about doing a good job. Just came to you.
I love that story. So does everybody else who is watching us. Now, overcoming obstacles is a major factor of our show, because we're trying to show someone else out there, hey, this guy could do it. Yes, he worked very hard, but was there ever a time that you thought, oh, this is a tough one?
Well, after high school and I had to visit my friends who were in college, that was a tough time for me.
Yeah.
Because I was a weekend visitor. And so I'd go down to Lafayette, or I'd go up to, to any university. I think of Lafayette because I used to go there a lot.
Yeah.
Lafayette College, then I think it's a university now. Or to Penn State or University of Pennsylvania. So I was a weekend visitor because most of my friends, practically all my friends, went to college. So I always felt less than whole as a result. I didn't make college friends. I didn't have college friends.
Do you still feel this way?
I certainly feel this way. Sure. I mean, my grasp of certain things in the worldly things that I have to pick up on my own, whether it's even just my vocabulary, which is probably more limited than it would have been if I had gone to college.
Well, your vocabulary is definitely better than mine. Please forgive me as a second language.
Well, your German is better than mine.
Yes.
So.
Yes, I assume that's what it is. Yes.
But so it's always been something, and I think everybody wants their children to have more than they have and be better than they are, and my parents pushed for me to go to college. I didn't do it, but I pushed for my kids. Always, they never thought about not going to college.
Got to take a break. On the American Dream Show with Dennis Suskind here at Gurney's and Overlooking the Ocean. Entrepreneur, a hard worker, a self-made man.
I guess so.
Yep, and a heck of a story you have. Dennis, give us a little bit about, obviously we had the family heritage. What about the family?
My family.
Your family.
Well, I'm very blessed in that regard.
Yeah.
I met my wife. I asked her to get married on our first date.
Really?
I was 25 years old.
Yeah.
We got married 3 months later.
Unbelievable.
And we're still
now we want a little more about that
and we're
story.
still, I don't know, it just seemed right at the time.
Yeah.
I was probably trying to get a good night kiss, was part of my motivation, but we got married very soon thereafter.
Oh, really?
We're still married.
Where did you meet her?
I met her through, her sister was engaged to a business, someone I did business with, and we used to go out a lot. We went on a double date, and her sister, I had a date, her sister said to me when we were walking up First Avenue in Manhattan, I'd like you to meet my sister.
Yes.
So I felt obligated to take her sister out.
Yeah.
So I took her to dinner, and that was
the end of that.
That was the end of that.
3 years
I haven't
later.
spoken to her sister since. No.
3 months later.
3 or 4 months later, got married.
They got married.
Got
That
married.
is so sweet. You obviously have children.
4 children. My oldest son lives in our oldest son, excuse me, lives in California, and he has 2 children. So I have 2 grandchildren, 6 and 3.
Nice.
The negative part of that is they live in California, so there's always, you have to travel to see your grandchildren or bring them here. Then I have a 30-year-old son who sort of works with me in something I do in the city. And I have a 26-year-old daughter who lives in the city also, and I have a 23-year-old daughter who just finished college this past year, and she also lives in the city.
So, a full life.
4 children give you a full life.
And when I counted right, you're 69. You look great.
Thank you.
What are you doing to look this way?
I think it all comes from my mother.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I had a great mother.
But what about food? You like healthy food?
No, look at me. I'm overweight.
No. I wouldn't say you're overweight. You're broad.
I happen to. I listen. I eat much too much. I play a lot of golf. I used to run before my knees went out. My wife still runs, so I don't. I think it's just my genes.
Just your genes.
Just my genes.
You're just blessed.
I am just blessed.
This is what it is. Now, in regards to charities, we obviously were talking about what the Hamptons Classic are doing. That is already pretty complex.
Right.
But I was told that you are a man who is giving back in general.
Well, I was president of the Arthur Ashe Institute for Urban Health, which is an organization that Arthur founded the year before he passed away. And I was president of that for 15 years. It's a great organization. It's a very hands-on organization. Started in Brooklyn, now it has expanded. And basically it's to bring health education into the urban community. It has a lot of great programs. I'll just tell you one program because I think it's so unique. It's called Black Pearls.
Yeah.
They go into beauty parlors. It seems that women, I don't want to generalize, tell their beauticians everything. They tell them much more than they would tell somebody else.
We do, for some weird reason.
They tell them about their husbands, their wives, their children, their sex life, everything.
Really?
That's what I'm told. I've never been a beautician, and I've never been a woman. But anyway, and what we do is we educate beauticians on healthcare, whether it's breast examination, whether it's where you bring your son or your daughter if they're sick, if you don't have a doctor, and so we educate the beauticians in terms so they can educate their clients.
That is interesting.
And it's it's on the ground. When last I checked, we were in over 200 beauty parlors around New York City and now Philadelphia, and other organizations have sort of copied it around the country.
And what's the name of?
We call it Black Pearls.
Okay.
And then we do something very similar in tattoo parlors.
That is hilarious.
And
Please forgive me for saying hilarious, but
because we wanted to get
people are laying down on a
right. I mean, I forget the fact
cot
that
are getting a tattoo.
Tattoo.
By the way, do you have a tattoo?
Absolutely never would have a tattoo.
Absolutely never.
I just came back from Disney World with my grandchildren, and I was amazed how many people, many women and men, have tattoos from the top of their head to the bottom of their toes. It was just shocking to me.
Yeah, it hurts.
I don't know if it hurts. It just looks terrible to me.
Yeah.
But it also.
Well, that's a matter of taste.
That's a matter of taste.
But it hurts. It really hurts.
I'll never find out because I'm never doing it.
I'm not going to find out either.
No.
Dennis, if you could do one thing in your life over again.
Over again?
What would that be?
Well, I'd probably go to college.
Yes?
Yeah.
So that's the message. The American.
You want to hear about? I interviewed one day at Goldman Sachs the person that had to go to Princeton. They usually send a Princeton graduate to Princeton or Yale graduate to Yale, and the person couldn't go, so I went. And so they had classes at Princeton and had an interview. They all come wearing the same color suits.
Yeah.
And you give them 5 minutes.
What color were the suits?
They're either gray or blue. Okay. Dark gray or navy blue. And men and women, boys and girls in that case. Anyway, so they had a series of questions. So I'd give them 5 minutes on the firm. They'd give me 5 minutes on them. You have any questions? And they all asked the same questions. Well, what did you major in? What college did you go to? And I said, well, I didn't go to college. So that you could see them sit back because they had to think about. They had to go to question number 6 because the next question was going to be that you were an English major. Did that help or hurt you on Wall Street, et cetera? So it's different. But I think if I was doing my life over again. I've been very blessed in many ways. I'd probably go to college. But on the other hand, not going to college put me 4 years ahead of all my peers. Because when they came out of college, I had 4 years of life experience that they could never get.
We must say that there are a few other very successful entrepreneurs, business people who dropped out of college and said, you know what?
They did.
And they are very famous and very wealthy, and we know who they are. We don't want to mention them, right?
But we buy their products all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
But listen, I've had a very blessed life. I think one of the strengths of my life, if I think of what I've done well, is that I can play golf one day with somebody who is a plumber from Hampton Bays, and the next day play golf with a billionaire. And depending upon who they are, some days I have more fun with the plumber than I do with the billionaire. Actually, in truth, I have more fun with the plumber all the time.
Now, what really surprised me was when we are filming the American Dream shows here at Gurney's, the crew comes out and we are starting early because we are filming on one day about 10 shows, between 8 and 10 shows. Yes, it is weird, but that's the way it is. It's a major apparatus to set all this up. And then I, by the way, have to film only for maybe 3 months because I have all these shows in a can. What I was really surprised about is when I asked you if you could be here for the basically second show at 9:45, and you had to drive from up there.
Bridgehampton.
No problem. And I was like, how are you getting up if I'm here?
I don't sleep very much.
You don't?
No, I sleep about 4 hours, 5 hours a night. So I'm up at 5:36 every day.
And you look that great with so little sleep. Wow. So some people just don't need that much.
Every so often I crash, but I mean, I'll sleep for a long time, but I always wake up. I always have. First of all, in the old days, before the market became so international and so perfect, I used to have to get up every day to trade in London. Yeah. So I had to get up at 4 o'clock to trade. So I trade from my bedroom. Yeah. And so I got in the
What
habit
computer do you use to do that?
Today? I use several. My own computer's an Apple.
Me too.
Yeah.
Don't you like them?
I do like it very much.
Very, very easy.
Right.
I like them. Do you still trade?
I still trade. I have an office in New York with my son, and we trade stocks and commodities for ourselves. And then out here I have some real estate interests and have 2 projects going.
But trading for yourself makes it easier.
Well, you have no one to blame but yourself. You don't have to, so when you take a loss, you don't have to go tell somebody.
Nope. And you just do it. But when you gain, you also...
It's been a tough market recently, so I haven't had too many gains.
That's what they say.
Right.
Yes, it is a real tough time. Dennis, coming on the Dream Show, on the American Dream Show, is something what you're used to. Quite frequently in the limelight, people want to interview you, the press and media is always after you. Why did you agree to say, yes, I want to talk about my beginnings, that there was a different life, not the life I live today?
Well, now you're not going to like the answer because I didn't know this was the Dream Show. I just thought this was a show, so I didn't know what we were going to talk about till I walked in here. But I agreed to come on because you were local, and I was
actually tri-state New York.
Tri-state New York, that's local. Yeah. I was a councilman in Southampton for 4 years. I love it out here.
Dennis Suskind.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for being on my show.
Thank you.
I found a new life in America.